very good morning to you all. Last class, we had discussed about seed and its germination. Now, when we talk about germination, we had also discussed what are the factors required for germination, like the external factors which include water, air, and suitable temperature. Today, we shall discuss what are the types of germination. Before moving further, one experiment was left, that is to prove that water, suitable temperature and air, that is oxygen, is required for germination. That is referred as 3-bean seed experiment. In this experiment, what do? You have to take that is a glass rod, you can say, a wide glass rod, and then you have to place 3-bean seed, tie it and then lower it into a beaker with water in such a way that seed number A is very much above the surface of water. Seed number B, it is just along the surface of water, and seed C, that is immersed in the water. We want to prove that that is whether water, temperature and oxygen are conditions necessary for germination or not. So in the first case, what happens, as you can see in the diagram here, this one, see, you take a beaker half filled with water. We have taken 3-bean seed. Now in the first case, the seed which is above the water, it does not germinate. Why? Because it gets suitable temperature as well as that is oxygen, but it is not getting moisture or water, that is an essential factor for germination. While the seed immersed in water also does not germinate because it gets water and suitable temperature, but the oxygen required for its germination is not enough, because since bean seed is naturally a terrestrial plant, right, so the oxygen dissolved in water is present, but that amount is not sufficient for germination to take place. But we find that seed number B, which is just that is at the surface of water, germinates because it gets all the 3 conditions necessary for germination. It gets water as well as suitable temperature and oxygen for germination. So seed number B only germinates. Clear? So that also proves that these are the factors required for germination. Now when we talk about germination, there are 2 types: hypogeal germination and epigeal germination. Hypo means below. Clear? And that is the hypogeal germination. Why it is said? Because the seeds, we have already discussed that they have either cotyledons or endosperm which store the reserve food for the growing embryo. Clear? So what happens in this case? The seeds, after absorbing the moisture of water, it swells up and the seed coat ruptures. Got it? So what happens? It starts germinating. All the conditions required for it is present, and therefore what happens? The radicle grow towards the soil and start developing the root system, while the cotyledons, they provide the stored food to the growing embryo. Now what happens? You have a structure called as epicotyle and hypocotyle. Hypocotyle is present just below the cotyledons, and you can see the diagram here. See, in this case, what do you find? You find that the seeds, that is the radicle, grows towards the soil, or that is the gravity forming the root system, while the cotyledons remain underground, and the plumule, it comes above the surface of soil and starts developing new leaves, and then photosynthesis can take place. So you can find this arch or loop so that the growing tip is pulled above the soil and they do not get damaged. So such type of germination you can find in the maize. Clear? And the next type is, and in the pea also you find it. Next type is epigeal germination. As you can see in the diagram, what do you find? That is, after the absorption of the moisture or water that is present between the soil particles, the moisture or the water enters through the micropyle, the seed swells up, the outer seed coat ruptures, and the radicle, it grows towards the soil. Meanwhile, what happens? The cotyledon, it pulls the upper part, that is the pumule, along with it above the soil. First they will form the foliage, that is the leaves, and later on these cotyledon, that becomes the young leaves, withers or dies away, and then the new leaves, new foliage leaves develops. Why it is called as epigeal? Because the cotyledons are pulled above the surface of soil. Therefore, it is called as epigeal germination. While in this, what do you find? That is, the cotyledons remain under the soil. Clear? So, epi means above and hypo means below. Clear? So, this you find in the gram seed and in the bean seed. Now, what happens in the maize seed? You can see the diagram here. See, what happens in this case? The seeds, that is the radicle and the pumule, they are covered by a protective sheath, cleptyle and colorizer. So, the radicle will pierce through the protective sheath, colorizer and grow towards the soil. While the cleptyle, the sheath covering the pumule will pierce through the cleptyle and grow towards the, that is above the surface of the soil and forming the young shoot or the young plant. Clear? So this also is a type of, what type of germination? That is hypogeal germination. Clear? Now there is a special type of germination which is called as Viviparis germination. What happens in this type of germination? Usually it is found in those areas where the soil is not nutritious enough. That means it contains more amount of salt, salinity of the soil is more. So in that case, what happens? The seeds, they germinate while they are in the fruit itself. Got it? So such type of germination is called as Viviparis. Viviparis, you have already know the term. That means the young ones are born directly. That is just a metaphor. Now, in this case, what happens? Why it is called as Viviparis germination? That is, usually what happens? The seeds, they drop into the soil, or then they provide suitable conditions are provided to it. Then it grows into a young seedling or a new plant. But in this case, what happens? The seeds germinates while it is still inside the fruit, and after that it gets dropped to the soil. Fruit break open, it gets dropped to the soil in the form of seedling, and then it can develop into new plant. So such type of germinations are found in rhizophora plant, and such type are found in the, which are called as Viviparis germination. Clear? So let me give you some notes so that it is more clear to your germination. Types of germination. Usually you will be asked, like, what is the difference between hypogeal germination and epigeal germination? Why it is called as hypogeal? Hypo means below If you just remember the term hypo means below and epi means above, so you can easily make out that what do we mean by hypogeal germination and epigeal germination. And then you have the Viviparis germination. So try to go through the questions, that is the objectives given at the back of the end of the chapter, and if you have any doubt in any of the answers, write in the comment section. I'll deal with all your doubts, but try to go through the questions. Usually in the board exams you will be given that type of questions. That's all. Stay home. Be safe.